If you're looking for the essential guide to get up and running with SolidWorks assemblies, you have landed in the right place. Through this mini-series, I'll walk you through everything you need to know about SolidWorks assemblies, from understanding what an assembly is, to inserting components and adding mates. A SolidWorks assembly is a collection of individual parts that come together to form a product. Imagine a bicycle, for example. It's made up of a variety of components like a frame, wheels, handlebars, and a saddle. Each of these are inserted as parts and then positioned relative to each other, and how they interact is defined using mates. We'll explain mates in more detail later on. The Assembly tab is where you'll find all the tools you need for assemblies, such as adding components, applying mates, and managing your assembly. The Feature Manager design tree, which you will be familiar with from the part environment, now organises the components, mates, and features of the assembly. And the graphics area in the middle of the screen is where you'll see your parts come together. Now that we've got a basic understanding of what an assembly is and the layout of the interface, let's go ahead and create a new assembly. This can be done by going to the File menu, choosing New, and selecting Assembly. Once the assembly file is open, you can start adding parts. You should find that the Insert Component property pane, or Begin Assembly as it will be titled here, is automatically displayed on the left-hand side. SolidWorks also may take you into a browser window. Both of these are dependent on what options you have set, so let's make sure everything is set as we need it. I'll close the browser window for now. The Begin Assembly dialog displayed here is exactly the same dialog as the Insert Component dialog, which can be manually prompted from the Assembly tab. Whether or not this automatically appears when a new assembly is created, and whether a browser window then also pops up, is controlled by these two tick boxes. For this example, I'm going to work with both ticked on. So when a new assembly is created, the Begin Assembly dialog automatically appears, and the browser window is opened too. The other thing that will change the behaviour here is whether or not any other SolidWorks files are open. If there are existing files open in the current SolidWorks session, the browser window will not be displayed, and instead, components to place in the assembly can be chosen from the list that appears in this box. I don't have any files open, so I'll click Browse and navigate to the file I would like to bring in. There are a couple of rules that you should try and follow when placing components. Ideally, the first component that you should place should be something that doesn't need to move. So going back to our bike example from earlier on, this would be the frame. The wheels need to rotate, and the saddle needs to move up and down, but the frame stays still. The second thing to be aware of is how the first component is placed. Once a component is selected, I could click in the middle of the viewport and that would place the component, or I could click the green tick. For the first component, it's important to use the green tick. Let me explain why. Using the green tick for the first component fixes it within the assembly, aligning up the planes of the part with the planes of the assembly. If I instead clicked in the viewport, the part would still be fixed, but it would not be centered within the assembly, and would be fixed off in space somewhere with no reference to the planes of the assembly. This can cause a number of issues later down the line, so hitting the green tick is usually the best option. When you start inserting parts into your assembly, it's important to understand that each part you add is treated as an instance of that component, and you can add the same part multiple times. But you are not adding a copy of that part. You are actually adding the part as created within the part environment, and any changes made to that part will be reflected within the assembly. So using the same part across multiple assemblies is fine, but just remember that if you change it, it will change it in all assemblies it is being used in. So now we've laid out some of the initial concepts and explained how an assembly is structured, we can move on and start looking at positioning and restraining parts relative to each other, which is achieved using mates. We'll continue this in the next video, so make sure to check that out next. And if you need to create marketing material and assembly instructions, why not try Cadasio? Turn your SolidWorks files into interactive 3D presentations that you can share online. Sign up today and try for free at cadasio.com.